content that converts. I love a good alliteration, I really do, creating content that alerts. So what is content marketing? Content, or what do I mean by this? Content marketing is something that it really started becoming a thing probably around 2010, 11, 12. And you can see that it really reached its peak round about the end of December 2020. It fell off a cliff last year for some reason. This is Google Trends, by the way, and this gives us a good indication over time of the popularity, shall we say, of a particular theme. So a useful little resource, free resource. Just Google Trends. You can see that the search term content marketing really, evolved over the last 10 years. A huge spike. It's all indexed, and a big spike. Say December 2020. Fell off a cliff again last year, but look, it's coming back up again. So it was very, very much a thing. Why is that a big deal? Can everybody hear me okay? I've just got somebody pop something in the chat box.
Yeah, can I just check that everybody can hear, Damien?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so John and Cleo, if I could ask you maybe just to check the settings on your own computer, just to make sure that the audio is on. Okay, Damien, go you on ahead. That's okay, go you ahead.
So look, looking at content and looking at the world of employability here is that I did some research. Now, this is not scientific research, but I did some research a few years ago, recently, but also off the back of the sorts of skills that employers are looking for. 4 years ago, the most in-demand transferable skills in marketing, digital marketing, were content curation and creation. And bringing that right up to date is look at the sorts of things that employers are still looking for. 7 essential skills every digital marketer needs to know. Video marketing, content marketing, there it is again. So it's good ratios that employers are really looking for. And here is my very non-scientific little bit of research I did over the last few days. What I did was on the 21st of March last week, I went into NI Jobs and I did a search for certain terms. Things like social media, digital marketing, SEO, content, Google Analytics and content. The blue bar is of all of the jobs, there was 185 mentions in job specs for the term content. And whenever I did the same exercise in NI Job Finder, there were 109 mentions of the word content. Now, I didn't count them all in terms of what they were actually saying, but it was a really good snapshot that it suggested to me people within job specs within NI Job Finder, the sorts of things that employers are looking for, whether it's SEO or Google Analytics or whatever. So in other words, it is a much sought after skill. What do I mean by content? Okay, 2 things here that we need to be careful not to conflate. Content is the stuff we say. The content type or the content format is the packaging. Okay, so a video is not content. A video is content format or content type. A blog is not content. The stuff that we read within the blog is the content. So we think about, we need to create a distinction between content format, in other words, the packaging, and the stuff we are actually saying. So that'll become more obvious as we go through it. So look, I could quote you stats till the cows come home, and you won't thank me for that. Things like blogs, so 55% of marketers say blogging is a top inbound marketing strategy. B2B marketers say blog posting is their go-to type of content. Content marketing costs less than traditional marketing. Yeah, it does. It can do, yeah. And so on and so forth. I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of stats. But look, the important, whenever it comes to what's content used for? Well, in business or for businesses, it really is with a view to, well, guess what, at the end of it all, getting a sale, getting an inquiry, getting a lead, getting whatever it is. And the thing is, depending on which industry you're in, is that your potential buyers, your potential customers, or potential clients could actually be researching a number of different pieces of content before they actually email you, ring you, whatever they do with you. So that there is, and I'm going to give you a real life example shortly. those are sticking with the content sort of formats, and this is from a couple of years ago, I think it was. Those are some examples, okay, and this is from a resource called Smart Insights. So if you're interested in all things digital marketing, Smart Insights is a really good resource, free resource. Short form videos, blog content, social media posts, podcasts, infographics, events, animations, case studies, blah, blah, blah. Those are all types of content formats. They're all types of content. Now, here's the thing, and I'm sure you've heard these sorts of things before, and I'm always a little bit skeptical whenever I hear them, but apparently, depending on what source you go by, each of us is exposed to something like 5,000 messages every day. That's a lot of stuff, whether that's in our phones or walking down the street or on television or on YouTube or in wherever. We are all exposed to, I haven't counted them by the way, something like 5,000 messages every day. So what does it mean then if we are responsible for creating content, for creating messages for our organization, for sake of argument? Well, that's a lot of noise. That 5,000 messages is a lot of noise to cut through. So what can we do then to create content that stands out? And this is where I talk about purple cows. Just you wonder why I'm showing you a picture of a purple cow. One of the most famous marketing books is written by a guy called Seth Godin called, guess what, The Purple Cow. And I'm paraphrasing this, but he was driving through the countryside, daughter in the car, and all of the cows are black and white, as indeed they are, okay? And he sort of thought, imagine if one of those cows was purple and white rather than black and white, how much would it stand out? Well, the same principle applies whenever it comes to our marketing and our content, and we're here to talk about content. Now, content is a much maligned word. I'm not really dying about the word content. Unfortunately, it's one of those words that I'm kind of stuck with. Okay, what is it? It's the stuff we say. It's the stuff that we want to say to our potential customers or clients or whatever. So content, as I say, it sort of rolls all of that up. Not dying about the word, because we wouldn't really talk about, watching the television program and calling it, that was a good piece of content tonight. Don't like it, but anyway, it is what it is. So this is all about really creating content that stands out, that becomes a purple cow. Look, anybody who knows, I don't know if there's anybody who's studying marketing or marketing disciplines, anybody who knows anything about marketing or is involved in marketing at all, rule number one is, guess what? Know your audiences. Okay, so we can't create content, and I'll explain as we go through this. We can't create stuff that's going to engage with our audiences unless we know who our audiences are and what sort of stuff is actually going to engage them. And that's the crucial bit at this stage. So it really is thinking about, okay, who is our audience, or who are our potential audiences? Every organization or business will typically have a handful of audience types, and we'll more about that in a second. So it really is important that we can actually identify who our audiences are, because when we know who our audiences are, what will interest them, what will engage them, what their motivators are, what their pain points are, what will push their buttons, what problem we're solving for them, is then we can create content that they will find. And I'm going to use this word quite a lot throughout the session, relatable. So it's stuff that they will be able to relate to our message. Okay, because, and here's the thing, and I'm forever banging the drum as a digital marketing consultant, that there is no one size fits all whenever it comes to content, and if we're doing it properly. So if we have got audience A, if we've got 4 or 5 potential, or 5 or 6 potential audiences, potential customer types, okay, what will motivate one of those audiences may not motivate the other. Okay, and I'm going to give you a real life example of that as well, very, very shortly. So we talk here really about who are our audiences. Well, then it really is the ones that we have, or the customers that we have, and the ones that we want. And we need to segment them. Look what I did there, segment them. So we talk about segmentation. In other words, we think about how can we break up our potential marketplace? How can we create, audience types around that? And there are different ways of segmenting audiences. Of course there are. But really what I'm talking about here is segmentation around our potential our audiences. One thing, again, this one is the P word. Anybody who's been exposed to anything to do with marketing will have come across the term personas. Personas really is another way of saying a customer type. Okay, so really whenever it comes to, okay, audience, we've got 5 or 6 different audiences, potential customer types. Let's call this one Damien, or Clueless Damien. I'll more about that in a second. But what are their behaviours? How do we want to segment them? Do we want to segment them around segments of age or gender or behaviours or lifestyle or whatever? Nike did a really good one. Look, this is a screenshot from social media today. Nike they effectively they created 3 personas. One was dedicated sneakerheads. You know it's American, don't you? Dedicated sneakerheads, weekend runners, and style shoppers. And they pretty much categorized their customer types into those 3 types of personas. So you can see that they have created real personalities around that. So the dedicated sneakerhead is this type of customer. Weekend runners is that type of potential customer. And style shoppers is that. So in other words, the messages that they would be, the content that they would create for the dedicated sneakerheads would be very, very different to the types of content that people would be, the content they'd be creating for people who buy, who just buy stuff because it looks good. Look, an example here of these are real life personas I created. If anybody's ever heard of Tech Ball effectively is, all it really is, imagine a table tennis ball. No, not a table tennis ball. Imagine a table tennis, a bent table tennis. This is actually a bigger. It actually looks like that, and you can actually play. You can play football on it, like football skills on it indoor. So I had a client in Belfast who actually had bought a number of these Tech Ball tables, and they wanted to get different audiences in. They wanted people to use these. They weren't getting the bookings for it. And I thought, well, okay, who would this appeal to? So then we looked at who are the potential audiences. So I created these little segments or audience types. One was what we call football crazies. I come up with football crazies. These are potential clubs. These are semi-professional or professional players. How can we sell Tech Ball to them? Well, improve skills such as ball control and body control and decision making, spatial awareness. Low impact, no contact equals low injury, and so on and so forth. But then there's those who aren't professionals that just like a kickabout. What's the big message there? Well, the big message is improve your skills, a bit of crack with your mates, boys v girls. It's going to be a big thing that's coming down the line. What else do we have? Right, anybody who's got a child of a certain age will know that it's very, very difficult to organise a birthday party that doesn't include a bouncy castle. So another option here was same product now, it's the same Tech Ball table. We thought, okay, let's appeal to parents because it's suitable for kids. And it's a great alternative to the bouncy castle, good for birthday parties, good safe fun, can be played indoors, which is important, of course, in Ireland, and so on and so forth. We even thought, okay, what about stags and hens and stens? If you haven't heard of stens is basically a joint stag and hen party, which sounds like an absolute nightmare. But we thought, okay, here's another audience for us here. And what can we say to them? Okay, it's something different, something that's a bit sensible, shall we say, before the traditional hen and stag activities and so on and so forth. Bit of crack, boys v girls, if you're doing the STEM thing, and so on and so forth. But the important thing here is this is still the same product throughout. There's still the bent sort of table tennis table but we've created different messages for the football crazies, for the kickabouts, for the stags and hens, for the kids and twinnies, but even team building. With same product, very often businesses are looking for what we call team building ideas and team building days out. Okay, let's sell it to them. Great for team building, mixed gender, good crack, and so on and so forth. So the important thing is that you have the same product and you have got different audiences, and the important thing is that those different audiences have different needs. So the kids and twinnies, their need pretty much was basically, we need something other than a bouncy castle, not another bouncy castle, and let's create content around that. or for the football crazies. We talk about them, perhaps the sort of stuff that they'd be interested in would be spatial awareness, ball control, all of those sort of skill-related ones. Whenever you're creating content, it's always good to think about where, about your points of difference. Okay, look, I don't want to melt your head with things like stats and Venn diagrams, but effectively, what we have here is this circle here is the stuff that our people want. This is the stuff that our potential customers want. And here's our competitors, and here's us. Now, like it or not, basically the stuff, some of the stuff that our potential customers want is that we offer, and our competitors also offer it. We call those points of parity. So those are effectively the things that we do, okay, that our competitors also do. But what we often, where we can stand out, and there's the purple cow again, where we can stand out is by finding our point of differentiation or points of difference. I call it the POD, P-O-D. So that's the stuff that we know that our prospects, our customers, our clients want, okay, that we do, guess what, that our competitors don't do. So very often, very, very valuable to focus on the on our points of difference, and we can create content around that. As I say, the best type of content provides a solution to a searcher's, well, not necessarily just a searcher, to a potential customer's problem. A few tools, and this is a nice one here, okay? So there's a tool called answerthepublic.com. It sounds a bit daft, but it's not. Answerthepublic.com. Really effectively what it does, you know what, whenever you go into Google and you start to type something and then it auto-completes, it makes a suggestion for you. This tool actually does that, okay? It actually scrapes Google for the autocomplete. I did some work with someone who was opening up a spray tan salon. And she was opening up a spray tan salon, and I was doing some work with her under a publicly funded mentoring program. And I used the tools answerthepublic.com to research spray tan. What we discovered was that people were Googling things like, will spray tan stain my sheets? Will it stain my clothes? Will it stain my false nails? Will it get on my wedding dress? How long before I go on holiday should I get a spray tan? What that allowed us to do, that very, very useful insight, it allowed us to say, okay, see, whenever you're building your new website, a couple of things. First of all, whenever you're building your new website, let's create a page, okay? Let's create content that answers those questions. So for example, question, will spray tan stain my sheets? Boom, answer it, boom. Will spray tan make me orange? Question, will spray tan make me orange? Answer it, boom. Google loves that type of content because guess what? It provides answers to searchers' questions. But also it provided inspiration for content, social media content. So that allowed Nicola to put out, to create content around these sorts of things that people are searching for. Another little tool is really useful called Also Asked. It's a subscription one, but it really, whenever you Google something and you get the search results and it says people also asked, these are the sorts of things that people are also asked. So I did a search for things to do in Belfast, and all of these things that people are also asked. Really good to get a deep dive on the sorts of things that people are searching for. So imagine that you have the opportunity to get all of your customers into a room, okay? So what would you say to them? Imagine that you were going to try and tell them how to tie a tie. Okay, so hold that thought for a second. So you've got the opportunity to talk to somebody, and what you want to do is you want to tell them how to tie a tie. Or indeed, you want to tell them how to make mashed potatoes. No, I haven't taken leave of my senses, guys. Honestly, there's method in my madness, I promise you. So perhaps you want to talk to them about how to tie a tie. You've got a room full of people and you want to talk to them about how to tie a tie. Imagine maybe you're a tie company. Or indeed, you want to talk to them about how to make mashed potatoes. The common and rookie error that most of us will fall into is that we will just launch into a talk about how to tie a tie or how to make mashed potatoes. The trap that we fall into is who is our audience? Who is in that room? Okay. Is there a particular, is it a room full of young people? okay? Or is it a room full of business people? Okay, because you imagine that the content that you would create, okay, and we're back to this knowing your audience, the content, the message, or the stuff that you would say, perhaps to a room full of business people about how to tie a tie, in other words, for meetings, for looking sharp, all the rest of it, would be very, very different than if, say, you had a room full of students, okay, who want to learn how to tie a tie, who want to learn how to tie a bow tie so they can go to formal. So you have two very, very different audiences, and you can see that their needs, in other words, their pain points, their motivators, all of those things are very, very different. Or indeed, whenever it comes to our mashed potato. So imagine who's in the audience. Okay, is it again a room full of students? Okay, because then what sort of stuff, and I do this as part of my training and my copywriting training, is that, so what would the message, how could you sell, what sort of content could you create? What would you say to students? Okay, perhaps, and then it's usually I'll crack. You get, so mashed potatoes are really cheap, they're really handy, and they're not expensive, and it allows you to spend more money in cider. You get that sort of crack. Now, that's a very, very different audience, shall we say, then, to perhaps like a dad who's been left at home, okay, and he found himself that he needs to cook for the kids and isn't a great cook or whatever. I'm not going to come up with a hapless dad scenario here, but what sort of content could we create about mashed potatoes for the hapless dad? So it could be around, okay, recipes with mashed potatoes and all the rest of it, to feed the family. So again, two very, very different types of content. Stuff that would appeal to the students and push their buttons, okay, and that's all I'm saying here is that the messages that would push their buttons and the messages that would push our poor unfortunate dad who's stuck at home. I mentioned this earlier on, content must be relatable, because imagine we're back to our scenario with a room full of people and they're all business people, and we then start to talk to them about how to tie a tie for a formal. We go, listen, mate, my formal was like 40 years ago. It's not relevant to me. The content must be what we call relevant and relatable. We must get it. We must understand it. We must identify with it. Another important thing whenever it comes to creating content is whenever somebody views our content, what do we want them to do with it? And that's what we call a call to action. So imagine you're in a room and you're somebody that you want to meet, okay, and you have a conversation with somebody. You will say something and then you will create an opportunity for them to respond. That's how life pretty much, that's how conversation, that's how dialogue works. So it really is that exchange. Okay, so I've said something, in other words, I've delivered a piece of content, whether that's just a chat about beer or whatever it is. You've delivered a message, and then to invite a response, we call it an ask or a call to action. So in other words, whenever we create content, we put something out there, we should really be inviting an ask. Okay, for example, whenever we post on social media, for sake of argument, click here, watch now, pass it on to someone who would look amazing in this, visit, book now. Those are calls to action I call directives. Okay, those are very, very, like, do something. Okay, they're very instructional. But very often the best type of content, or sorry, not content, start again, David. The very best type of call to action really is a conversation starter. So we have shown you something, okay? For example, let's go back to our mashed potatoes. We've created a nice piece of content for students around mashed potatoes. Okay, you think it would work for Mash Direct here, wouldn't you? But imagine that we posted something on social media and says, okay, have you any ideas? Okay, what are the benefits? What do you find the benefits of mashed potatoes are? In other words, it's the kind of over to you. Tell us what you think, what's your experience, which do you prefer, have we missed it? Those conversation openers, okay? So really, whatever you do is whenever you're creating an opportunity to say something to somebody, is you're giving them an opportunity to engage. There's the word, to engage with you through their content. And above all, whenever we are creating content, I'm sorry the font is actually dropped out. I think it's the way I created this. It's a bit weird. It should sit in the middle of that, but anyway, give it heart. Okay, our content should always have what I call an emotional imperative at its heart. So give it heart. Okay. I talked early on about the difference between content and content formats. Okay, just to reiterate, is that content formats really is the packaging. For example, say I want to create a piece of content. There it is again. I'm getting sick listening to the word content myself, but it is about content marketing, so it's in the skip. I want to create a piece of content about to market potatoes to students. Okay, so I've created a lovely piece of content. And so what I do now? Okay, what's the best format? Okay, for me to distribute that content. Okay, video probably, yeah, given that the students, you know, TikTok videos or you know, reels or whatever. What type of format? Well, we could equally package that in like a little social media post or a little competition, or as a carousel of images, or as a what else? A survey. We could do a survey or whatever. But so all of those, we need to think about those, you know, content formats. So we've got this beautiful message, okay, this beautifully well-researched message. So then how best to package that? And it doesn't have to be one of these. It can be one or more of these. And it's always good to think about just that, is how can you package and repackage your message. Look, the sorts of stuff that I'm looking at, video. Look, guys, it'll come as no shock to you any more than it doesn't come as any shock to me that whenever it comes to marketing, is that video is very, very powerful. And that's driven very, very much, as you can expect, because of social media. So we have like video powerful, and increasingly, well, pretty much over the last few years, is like marketeers who say video is an important part of their market strategy. It's nearly universal. It's nearly universal. You know, what else have I got here? So video, by and large, okay. So whenever it comes to your packaging or content packaging, and this is for Facebook, okay, like or loathe, but it's quite a good little illustration. By and large, video content on Facebook will get more engagement with an image, and Facebook will get more engagement than an update, will get more engagement than just links. And over on Instagram, forgive the awful chart, by the way, video will get more engagement than a carousel, will get more engagement than images. So we can see that typically now, and very much for the likes of Facebook and Instagram, and guess what, surprise, surprise, of course, TikTok, is that video is, well, there's no escaping video really with some of those formats, some of those platforms. Video will usually get more engagement than any other content packaging, but of course not everything can be a video. Of course it can't. This next bit, okay, is about taking better photographs. Okay, it's about taking better photographs and video. Okay, so video content is a very content in the form of video or content in the form of visual. Okay, so we're talking about visual content is very, very powerful. So these next few slides is really a crash course. There you have it, a crash course in how to take better photographs and video with your phone. Okay, so for example, always, and I've used food photography, pretty much I've used food photography as an example, because food is notoriously, I have so many clients under different programs that are that they're in catering, and honestly, there's nothing will make something look terribly unappetizing than really bad photography. You know, so they've got taken a photograph of their food and put it in social media. Go, I couldn't eat that. You know, so really important that I've used food as the benchmark here, because food is notoriously difficult to take photographs of or to make it look good. Jewelry is another thing. I had a client in former life, you know, in former life, I had a client who was a jeweler. What can look amazing actually looks pants really sometimes when we photograph it. Rule number one is always use natural light. Okay, unless you're professional, okay, unless you're going to get it professionally lit and so on, use natural light. Okay, so for things, okay, believe it or not, artificial light actually is what looks to our eye. What light might look white is what I'm saying to our eye, but to our phones or to our camera, it can actually look different. It can look a different color. For example, fluorescent tubes under certain fluorescent tubes can look green. It can actually make things look green. So it might look, I've got an angle poised lamp on the desk here at the minute and it looks white, but it's probably, well, I don't see what you're saying. Sometimes that sort of light can look orangey. Okay, so use natural light, okay, where you can, and this is very much, I'm talking about for people here for a second, use natural light. If you can go outside, guess what, go outside. I saw a cracking, it was in Pottinger's Entry in Belfast, it was a year or two ago, and it was during the summer, and I saw a girl was out, she was in one of the cafes, and she was clearly setting up a photograph, you know, a shot, an instant photograph of, you know, a cappuccino and a tray bake or something. She took ages to get it right, you know, and she was clearly setting up. She took it out. She had the good sense to take it out and let natural light do its best. Avoid flash, guys. Avoid flash, honestly, because it just can make things, it can white it out, you know. And if you can, take it outside. If not, if it's raining here, you know, which, you know, take it near a window if you can. So look, imagine that there is some food photography. You couldn't have achieved that unless you were a professional, you know, without going out and let the sun do its job. For people, that was for things, for using natural light for people. Again, avoid flash. It can wash us out. And I say take them outside if you can, you know, or if not, you know, go near a window. And if you're going outside, of course, be careful about that squinty thing, you know. What's your background? And I've fallen foul of this a few times. Whenever you're taking photographs of something or a video of something, just watch what's in the background, because nobody really wants the dog's butt in the image, like, do we really? So it's really, it's just checking, did I really want that in there? Having a good look around to make sure that there's stuff in there that we don't actually want to include. Look, set it up nicely. Composition is really, really important. You can play around to get things to look good, you know, to decorate the scene, you know. There's a thing called rule of thirds. What I mean by that is that by and large, and this is a photography thing, and it's not just photography, it's art in general, is that if you imagine you divide, you know, your frame into 9, is that by and large, the human eye is drawn to, likes the positioning of things in what we call the intersection of the third. In other words, there, okay, rather than bang in the middle. Now, I'm going to contradict myself in a second, because there are times where to put something bang in the middle is really good. But this rule of thirds is a good, you know, in terms of how we can compose, and that's what it is. It's composition. If any students on here are studying anything to do with the arts, will probably, you know, have a better understanding of the sort of the composition techniques. But sometimes there are times that the actual image, I mean, a donut's round, so it's going to look really good if we can get it dead center. And another thing I would say is to use, and I saw it there, but I didn't mention it. Whenever it comes to our rule of thirds, or whenever it comes to composing things, use your camera's grid lines. Use those guides, because they allow you to actually line things up in the way that you really want to compose it properly. Try different perspectives. This is one of my top tips, as it were. Look, I'm 6'2", so if I'm holding a phone or a camera for that matter, and I take a photograph of something, I'm seeing that from the perspective of someone who's 6'2". And it's going to look quite boring, okay? Imagine then if this is going to sound like the intro to a bad song, if I got up, got down, or got close. Imagine then if I was to try a different perspective. Now that is, these are stock shots as you can see, but imagine then if I wanted to take a photograph of this guy in a library and I was down beside him, that would be a very boring, ordinary shot. But if I got myself above here, that's a very much more dynamic shot, or video, whatever you want to call it. Shoot from above. Shooting from above works well for some things, okay? Another top tip is don't zoom. Don't zoom. So natural light is my biggest big tip number 1. Big tip number 2 is don't use flash. And big tip number 3 is never zoom. Get closer, okay, rather than zoom, because it will pixelate. No matter how good your phone is, and phone cameras are amazing, they are. But by and large, it'll pixelate. So get closer rather than zooming. That's talking to food again now. But certain types of food, or certain types of things, you know, are better shot from above. Imagine if I was to try and shoot that from the side, because it's like a fairly flat, it'll lend itself very, very well to being shot from above. So that type of thing works well from above. However, okay, for taller things, if I was to shoot that from above, it would look pants, because all I would see effectively would be the top of that burger bun and the chips. So you can see that the best perspective here really is from the side. So again, it's trying different perspectives to see what works best. So taller things really from the side, and flatter things really very often from so-called bird's eye view. Close-ups are good as well. From creating content, close-ups can be really good to bring out some detail. Candids. Okay, we talk about candids. What are candids? Anybody who's been to a wedding in the last 2, 3, 4 years probably has been tortured with these things. They're very much in vogue. It's usually, usually you get your wedding photographs, and then there's the photographs of the night where the photographer will walk around and catch people like very animated in conversation, usually the worse for drink or whatever. So candids work well. Imagine there is, I think I've got an example here. Yeah, look, if I had turned around, and this is a stock shot, of course it is, but if we had actually said that lady, turn around and smile, well, that's one shot. But this candid, this lost in thought, lost in concentration, shot is very, very much another. So you can see those candids can work really well when it comes to people. You need to have their permission, of course, as well. Another little tip is Americans call it negative space. I used to work for a newspaper and we called it white space. Negative space is probably more accurate because it doesn't have to be white. What does it mean? It's to give space. Don't fill your frame. Don't fill the frame with the subject. Give it what we call negative space. In other words, give it room to breathe as such, is another sort of composition technique. Props are good. Again, look, this is a completely staged one from the stock shot. I mean, that's fine. Imagine that was our the girl in Potter's Entry, setting up a nice bit of what looks like, I don't know, carrot cake or some damn thing, with the cappuccino. Imagine that we were creating content that we wanted to appeal. Imagine it was a restaurant or a cafe that wanted to get more business people in, or more people to sit and read the book from one end of the day or other. Introduce props. It's introducing props. I don't want to sound trite about it, but it's introducing stuff that actually will bring it to life. Make it human. This shot here, okay, would have been grand. There it is again. Would have been grand if it just had been without the hands. But bringing those hands gives it something else. It gives it another layer. It gives it much more dynamic, as it were. And tell a story. Tell a story. And this is really important, whether it's in video or phone or video or static images. Tell a story. Evolve. If you're creating content, evolve it. Evolve it to next. I'm not going to use this example because nobody in the room will know will even have heard of the Gold Blend couple. So you can Google it. It was an ad campaign that actually told the story and evolved the story over a number of years. Thank you, Jackie. And Jackie, it was of more innocent, it feels as if it was of a more innocent era. It was 90s, it ran for a number of years. It was a campaign that basically was for coffee. Look, let's get. And I remember the very first episode for Nescafe Gold was, I think it was the guy calling at the girl's door, or the girl calling at the guy's door, asking to borrow coffee or sugar or whatever. I'm guessing it was coffee. That campaign ran on for years, and it evolved their story. It evolved their relationship, and right down to the final, I think, campaign was. You couldn't wait until the next ad. Innocent Times, Jackie, Innocent Times, right down to will they or won't they? And in fact, they did. Just spoiler alert, they did. So it evolved from that, and it was a story that was a nice device. Okay, it was different viewing habits in those days. It was the 90s. We didn't have the distraction of all of these other screens, as it were. So it was easier to do that. It was easier to evolve in that sort of context. Another thing we can do, because we have a phone, okay, talking phones, is we can take as many photographs as we like, or as many videos as we like. It doesn't cost them. We don't have to pay to get them. I know this is something nobody in the room, or very few people in the room, will understand, is we don't have to go and pay to get them developed. We can scroll through, boom, boom, boom. There's the one there. So obviously more, giving yourself more choice from different angles, different perspectives, different setups will give us, create more opportunities to actually to get it right. And look, even within our phones, there, the actual, within Insta or whatever, we can edit. We can edit that. Should we add filters? Should we add emojis? Should we add text? Blah blah blah. You can do whatever you want with it. You can, you don't need me to tell you what you can do with filters. You don't. How to polish things up, as it were, And okay, okay. So look, indulge me with this. All right, indulge me with this. We're leaving our how to take really good videos and how to take really good, photographs behind. This is something that in all my content marketing talks and workshops I include. So please forgive me and indulge me. I call it attention to detail, or indeed the elephant in the room. If we're creating content, specifically content that is word-based, for example, blogs and social media posts and so on, there's nothing will spoil the integrity of that than poor spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Really, honestly, and it can kill something stone dead. And in my training, I show examples of where that's, yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, got it. Yeah, and there was a well-known book from a few years, Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. It was about that very, very thing. So the grammar police. I don't want to turn this into the pandas right. I don't want to turn this into, all into the grammar police, or for you to think that I am a grammar member of the grammar police. But look, I could quote you stats to the cows come home, as I say. 74%, let's call it three quarters of people say that they notice the quality of grammar and spelling in content on websites. Nearly 2/3 of us wouldn't use a company whose site contained poor grammar. And it matters in places you might not imagine. There was nice research done a few years ago by, I think it was eHarmony or Match. I think it was eHarmony, one of the dating websites anyway. They did, I kid you not, they did research around the spelling and typos and grammar in profiles, in people's dating profiles. And they found that men who had 2 or more either typos or grammar or errors in their profile, shall we say, saw less action than those who didn't, because it speaks volumes. It subconsciously we make certain judgments around, education and status and all of the rest of the class. Even there it is, I said it. So spelling, punctuation, and grammar does actually matter in places, and I can't let it go. Do I put in my slide about apostrophes? Yeah, I do. So what are they, and when do we not use them? What are they for? They're used whenever we want to substitute, missing letters. Can't instead of cannot. It's instead of it is. Although it's is a tricky one because there are different it's. You're instead of you are. Or indeed to denote, the possessive. Peter's car, they'll tell you, I'll say. But look, it's this. It's what we call the greengrocer's apostrophe. CDs with an apostrophe. No. Hundreds with an apostrophe. No, not at all. It doesn't belong there whatsoever. And there are loads of examples of these. That's Debenhams. They have the greengrocer's apostrophe for polos. Oh yes. So a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was getting a Lewis from Conley Station in Dublin to the Point, and I collect these sorts of things. I know it sounds a bit sad, but I like to use these sorts of examples within training such as this. I do a lot of training around copywriting, and I kid you not, it was from the window of the Lewis I saw, and this is from the National College of Ireland, guys. I saw they were celebrating 10 years of learning with their ABCs, with their apostrophes, the greengrocer's apostrophe. I just had to have that one. So National College of Ireland, cringeworthy is right, Magnus. Cringeworthy is right. And look at these sorts of things, But look, people send me these now. A lot of people who've attended my previous training will send me these funnies now. So this was there was a bus on a fire at Stansted Airport 2-3 years ago. And instead of fights to resume after a bus fire grounded. Now, there may very well have been fights, but I think the word there was flights. And look, attention to detail. That's from Disney. They made these, I don't know what the hell it is, baby's first Christmas. If Disney can make a mistake, I'm sure there you go. That must have cost a few bob as well. Like it really must have. Instead of Christmas, Christmas. One of my favourites, is the Bank of Australia, the Mint in Australia, published $5 billion worth of Australian dollars with a big typo in the watermark. Now, guess what? They didn't burn them. The business said, okay, live with it. Whenever those are all done, and of course, banknotes do die after a while, we'll fix it. So great responsibility, rather than no responsibility. But look, I love that one. That person had one job, I kid you not. 6 bananas instead of 5, so it's the attention to detail, My takeaways, okay, we're in good shape time-wise again. My takeaways, okay, for this time around are know your audiences. This is so important whenever it comes to this. Is about content marketing, and the key principle is who is our audience, or who are our audiences. What are their interests? What are their pain points? What are their motivators? What are they going to find relatable? Segment our audiences along those lines. Okay, find your purple cow. What is your point of your point of differentiation? Okay, what is it that you offer that your customers want that your competitors don't? Whenever it comes to creating content, it's relatable. Make sure it's relevant and relatable to a specific audience, and they can only do that through good research. Have an ask. Always have that ask, that call to action, okay, within your content. So imagine you've written a blog article about such and such. Always open the floor, okay, have an ask. Think about how you'll package your content, okay, so this is what we want to say. What's the best format? Is it video or blog or competition or social media list or whatever? And of course, pay attention to the detail. And that is me.